Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's introductory webinar, How to Do Business with the Government. My name is Amanda Anderson. I am the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today I'm joined by James Forrest, our fantastic procurement specialist. And as a special guest, we do have Darlene Neal here from the Oakland Women's Business Center. And I'll actually pass it over to her to let you know a little bit more about how she can help you.
Thank you, Amanda and James, for having us today from a New America Women's Business Center. It's always a great opportunity to share in these webinars with you and provide such valuable information to our participants. As Amanda said, my name is Darlene Neal, and I am the director of the Women's Business Center in Oakland. The Women's Business Center has been around for over 18 years, and we provide technical services to individuals to help them with their business, whether you're starting or in business looking to scale. We help individuals with such as subjects that we're talking about today, with understanding how to put together your application to prepare you to work with Norcal APEX Accelerators. So we are here as a resource as well. The Women's Business Center has over 100 educational centers throughout the United States. So there's local representatives in each of the cities that you may be in or in the state in general that can help you. Our goal is to really help individuals, particularly assist women in starting and growing this business, as I mentioned, but we seek to level the playing field for women entrepreneurs who face that unique challenge and obstacles in the business world today. And so we are here to help that process be a lot easier for you with our resources. Again, we offer our training and counseling services at no charge, and we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 to assist you. You can visit our website at newamerica.org, as indicated there, to find out more about our services and our training programs as we have them listed on our calendar. In addition to that, again, we are part of a network, as I mentioned, of 100 educational centers that are advocates for women entrepreneurs and the small business community. So we seek to help find ways of helping you enhance your opportunities for growth. And so again, I'll turn it over to Amanda, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us today, Darlene, a fantastic resource in the Women Business Centers. And for our audience, I do want to let you know, you will get a link to connect with Darlene and the Oakland Women's Business Center as part of the follow-up for this webinar with that recording and slide deck. So thank you again. And with that, before we jump into the real bulk of the presentation, I want to tell you a little bit about APEX Accelerators, so our program. And while I do, I want to go ahead and launch a quick poll just to get an idea of where all of you are in your procurement journey. Are you just starting out? Are you kind of in the middle of it, looking for some guidance? Or are you a seasoned contractor with the government? We would love to know. So I went ahead and just launched that poll, and I will tell you a bit about how APEX Accelerators can help you no matter where you are in your journey. So APEX Accelerators is a federally funded program that is developed to help businesses just like you with training and education so that you can successfully contract with government agencies. And that's government agencies at the local community level, at the state level, and at the federal level. We can help with all of it. And I will note, as a nationwide program, we have over 96 centers across the US. And all of our resources, no matter what center you're at, will be available at no cost to you because we are already funded by the government. Next slide, please. So for Norcal APEX Accelerator, our center, we cover the northern coastal California area, as you can see the map on the slide. If you are within one of those 15 counties, you would be signing up for assistance through us. And so we offer no-cost government contracting assistance through three main pillars of services. Our one-on-one counseling, which we do virtually as well as in person in Humboldt County. And this is where we set you up with a procurement specialist, just like James Forrest. And they sit down and they help you with what you need help with, whether that's a SAM registration, a women-owned business certification, or even contract compliance. Once you win that contract, we can help afterwards as well. We are a full service government contracting assistance program, and we're here to help you. Another way that we assist our clients is through our custom bid matching program. Now, custom bid matching is a service that our program pays for, but we offer to our clients at absolutely no cost. And what it does is it scours all of the procurement sites on the internet. There are so many that post opportunities that you could be getting. And our bid matching program pulls all of those that you qualify for based on criteria that you set down with your counselor to send relevant contract opportunities straight to your inbox. So you'll be getting, whether it's relevant by the location you want to perform the work, relevant by the industry of the business that you are in, and anything like that. So it's essentially sending opportunities that are relevant to you and your business and your goals directly to your inbox. So an absolutely invaluable resource. And finally, our third pillar is our resources and trainings, which you're actually taking advantage of right now. We offer resources on our website from local contracting page links. So if you're looking to do work with a city or a county government, we have links on our website that you can go to find their bid page where they post their open solicitations, which honestly can be one of the hardest parts of government contracting, is finding those open solicitations, especially on a smaller scale. And with our trainings, we offer them year-round, both virtually and in person. We are definitely getting back into doing more in-person events. And the beauty of both our website resources and our virtual trainings and in-person trainings is that you don't even have to be a client or within our service area to take advantage of them. They are completely out here for you to use, no matter where you are. And as a little note, if you're still hesitant about signing up with your APEX Accelerator, whether that be in Northern California or at one of the other 96 centers across the US, we have a little statistic. In 2022, we helped our clients, the folks who have connected with our APEX Accelerator, win over $900 million in government contracts. So no matter where you are in your contracting journey, Norcal APEX Accelerator or your local APEX Accelerator can definitely help you out. And I would highly recommend getting connected. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, which I believe is where I will turn it over to our presenter for today, James Forrest, and we can go ahead and look over that poll.
Yeah, all right, let's take a look before I get into the real fun disclosure here. This is about what we expect. I'll end the poll here and share results. About half of you, no experience. Another almost half, you started on the process of government contracting. Maybe you got some registrations, certifications, things like that, but no contracts yet. And then it looks like just one of you has had one or two contracts. So this is perfect. We're going to have a real high level overview of government contracting. The idea is you'll get something out of it no matter where you are, but it's definitely perfectly fine if you are kind of just shopping around and trying to tell where you are, what your next steps are. So there's going to be something for everybody, but we're definitely going to start on a high level and talk about it that way. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so I just want to note, we do this for every webinar, that The information that we're presenting here, it's accurate to the best of our knowledge at the time of the presentation. This is being recorded, so it is 2023 right now in August. So this information could change. Most of the high level things probably won't, but who knows what happens tomorrow. So just letting you know that. Let's go ahead and dig into the agenda for today. So first thing right off the bat, we're going to talk about what is government contracting. We have a lot of new beginners here, which is great. And so we're going to really start on that high level of really what are we talking about with government contracting? I think it can sometimes be confusing, difference between contracting and grants, or the difference between government contracting and private contracting, or is subcontracting a type of government contracting or not? So we'll go over that a little bit. We're going to talk about how to determine if selling to the government is right for you. It's not right for everybody. And I think one of our responsibilities as a procurement technical assistance center is to kind of guide you to making the right decision for your business. And if that means focusing on the private sector rather than the public sector, then that's something that we want you to be aware of as well. And of course, how to get started. We're going to go over some resources for that, some tips, marketing to the government. I cannot stress this enough. This is the most important part. You can get the registrations, the certifications, you can look at your bid match notifications, all that stuff. But if you're not marketing yourself to the government agencies that you want to do business with, you'll be spinning your wheels 90% of the time. So most of your time should be spent marketing. So just sort of get in that headspace about, you want to be active and not reactive in this space. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Where to find bid opportunities. So there's a lot of different ways. You can find local, state, federal bid opportunities, and ways to find subcontracting and teaming partnerships as well. And then we're going to wrap it up with your overall steps for success. So I'm looking forward to this presentation, and I hope you are too. So as promised, let's get right into it. What is government contracting? I think we probably have a general sense of what it is. It's well, first of all, like, what's a government, right? So that's a good question to ask. Government, of course, is tax-funded entities that help run our society. So it could be, of course, the federal government. And when people say the government, they often think of the federal government. But we also mean anything from school districts, municipalities, public water and power utilities, the state of California, Nebraska, you name it, any of the states. So there are a lot of different forms of governments, and including tribal governments, all kinds of transportation authorities. So try to maybe expand your definition of what we're talking about with the government. But in almost every case, they're tax-funded entities that are not privately owned. And so it used to be that, imagine that you're a government entity. Let's say you're the federal government, and you need something done. That's really what this is all about. You need something done, or you need supplies. You have a couple options. You could hire an employee as a federal employee, and then train them up or make sure they have the right capacity. And then you have them on payroll. Maybe they do a job for you. And then whether you need them or not afterwards, you have sunk a lot of resources into hiring that employee. So a lot of in services, what we see is a big trend over the last decades towards, instead of hiring employees to do service work, what they do is that they just rely on the private sector to fulfill needs. So they'll go out and they'll issue contracts, and the contracts can come in a lot of different forms. Contract basically saying, hey, this government agency needs something done. Can you do it? And of course, it's a bit different with supplies. So we have some images here, construction as a service, janitorial as a service, firefighting, but then we also have an image of office supplies. So these are some of the most common things. Government has a ton of office buildings, state government, federal government, county, you name it. That's almost synonymous with what the government's locations are, office buildings. So you think about all the kind of office supplies, paper products and pens and IT, computer, things like that. All kinds of governments need those things. So they don't produce those things themselves. They don't go out and build factories and make those things. They'll buy them from the private sector, and usually at a pretty discounted price as well. Government also procures things a little less occasionally, but you can still find opportunities for things like moving services. If you sell dog food and leashes, there are canine units and different kinds of animals. The government buys food. The USDA has all kinds of programs where they buy produce in bulk, and they even rent goats for grazing. So we have some clients that do that sort of goat herding work, which is really good for fuels reduction and noxious weed reduction. And so there's really all kinds of opportunities in government contracting. This is kind of where you come in as a small business. You're going to ask yourself, is there an opportunity for me here? The government does buy almost everything at some point, but it may not be worth your while for some of these categories. So let's go over some of the common industries for government contracting and some of the less common ones. And so commonly, public works, architecture, engineering, and construction. This is one of the #1 categories here. So if you're in a construction firm or you're a subcontractor for a construction firm, you're looking pretty good as far as your involvement in contracting. Professional services, this includes all kinds of consulting and management, things like that. As I mentioned, office supplies, janitorial, IT is a gigantic category. IT services, IT products, laptops, all kinds of network services, cloud services. And so that's something to be aware of if you're in that field. There's also a lot of cybersecurity requirements that we're not going to go into today, also to keep on your radar. Medical supplies, technology, all kinds of medical things, transportation and logistics. So if you do logistics support or trucking, things like that. Fire suppression services, especially for wildfire incidents, that's a huge thing that we help with. A lot of our clients, especially in the northern part of the state. If you are a pretty newbie sole proprietor, you can still get work through the Forest Service and through Caltrans if you have the right kind of equipment and experience to get onto some of these wildfire incidences and help manage base camps, help support with things like hand wash trailers, or if you have heavy construction equipment that can clear fire lines, things like that. And of course, anything related to defense contracting is a big one as well for the federal government. Some less common industries I want to go over. And so, as I mentioned, if you have a successful business, or even if you're struggling, but you're in a category where you're not likely to have a lot of success in the government marketplace, it's not in my interest to steer you towards government contracting. So we want you to do what makes sense for you. If you are related, anything federally illegal, for instance, cannabis, there's some state opportunities or local opportunities, but specifically if you're cultivating cannabis, that's not going to work. But there are very few opportunities. So we wouldn't really want to encourage you if you're in that field. In something as common as restaurants, there are catering gigs that you can get. They're not that consistent. But unless you have a specialty in catering and you can really do it cost effectively and quickly, and you have a well-oiled machine there, you're just a restaurant, generally we wouldn't recommend that you trying to get into government contracting. You're better focused on marketing your business in other ways. Same is true of bars. Governments don't spend a lot of money on alcohol. They have a duty to use their tax dollars wisely. Nothing against your bar, but that's just kind of how it is when you're dealing with the government. Entertainment, well-being, holistic health, clothing retailer. So there may be wholesale options, uniforms, and things like that, especially for prisons, which we're going to go over in a minute. But as far as clothing retail, your average store you would walk into, not a lot of opportunity there. Luxury items as well. Just got to kind of think, what would a government agency want to spend their money on or need to spend their money on, given that they're using tax dollars. That being said, again, all kinds of things are purchased by the government. So let's look at one example of one location in one department in the CDCR for the state of California, Pelican Bay State Prison. And this is obviously a huge list here. These are just some of the things that they procure in this one location. So if you see something in there that fits you, we've of course got software and IT, stationery, to provide laundry services, housekeeping, automotive services, all USDA foods, they need to feed the inmates. These are all categories that are purchased even in just one location. So it's just a microcosm of the bigger landscape. but we like to kind of just point this out here. They also do construction, all kinds of things. Okay, moving on, let's talk about some terms. So who here has heard of the term subcontractor, prime contractor, or even just sub and prime? If you want to drop in the chat and just say yes or no. We might hear these terms and have a vague idea of what they mean, but I want to go over and be specific. So a typical structure for a large project. Government needs something, let's say a construction project. It's a big public works project, and it's going to be millions of dollars because constructing things is not easy these days. It's not cheap. So typically what they'll do is they'll find one main prime contractor, which is usually a large business. So we're geared very much towards small businesses. So we really wouldn't be helping these large construction firms directly in the way that with our client services. But where you might come in on a large project like this, which you probably don't have the capacity if you're starting out or if you're a real small business to bid on, you know, $200 million projects and things like that, building bridges. But you could get work as a subcontractor. If you're a drywall contractor, if you're an electrical contractor, if you're putting in rebar, that would be getting work as a subcontractor. You're fulfilling a percentage or a small part of the overall project. So it looks like most folks are saying yes, you've heard of these terms before. So so this is kind of how you might get involved as a subcontractor. So we want you to think in government contracting, not just I need to bid on as a prime, going on SAM.gov and looking for prime contracts, but thinking how can I get involved on any level, so including as a subcontractor. And it's really important to kind of take a wider view to understand what your role might be here. Okay, so let's talk about a recipe for success. And you have a link here right at the top. This leads to our website. It's a readiness checklist. Everyone should go and check this out. If you're asking yourself, is government contracting right for me, or is it right for me at this time in my business? Go check this out and kind of go through it. So at the bare minimum, you should have your business established. You know, you should, if applicable, be licensed and registered. And it's really better if you're up and running with sales and a performance history. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, if you're a sole proprietorship, you know, you don't in California, you don't need to be registered with California Secretary of State as if you were an LLC or something like that. But you do have to have, you know, everything in line and ready to go. And you can get business as sole proprietors in government contracting. There's no restriction that says the sole proprietors can't get a slice of government contracts. It is better, I think, in a lot of cases if you have an LLC or a corporation, but I'm not a general business advisor, so I won't get into that, but it really depends. So you want your business established and ready to go. You want a business plan that includes government contracting. And so let me make this clear. Your time and your energy as a business owner or as a representative of your business are very valuable. And it is rare for businesses to find success in this marketplace. This is a competitive marketplace with a lot of red tape, and it's a lot of work to get contracts. So if you don't already have a plan in mind, or if you're not currently working on that, then you might want to go back to the drawing board and kind of come up with a plan that includes government contracting, hopefully as one part of your revenue source, not the entire revenue source. So, you know, if you're just starting out, don't try to make government contracting your entire business model. Make it a part of your business model, and then take the steps towards making that happen, which is what this is all about. Financial stability. Okay, so government contracting is an investment. It's an investment of your time and energy, as you said, but it's also a financial investment. So can you afford to sell to the government? That's an interesting question, but government is a very reliable payer once you get in and get a contract. You know, they're not going to disappear and leave you with the bill in that sort of way, but they can be hard to bill sometimes. So you have to follow their procedures, and if you mess up the invoicing process, or if you mess up the packaging or the labeling on let's say a supply that you deliver, they may not pay you, and you may not find out for many weeks or even months after why they're not paying you. But even if everything goes well, it's pretty common to have to wait 90 days, 3 months after the completion of a contract in order to get paid. So it really depends on the government agency and the system that we're talking about. But you have to ask yourself, can you afford to pay all your employees and to wholesale or manufacture the goods while you wait for the contract payment to go through? And so you don't want to lose money on a contract. That's another point. We have a lot of clients that want to really bid low. They want to bid competitive. They want to look at what their competitors bid and then just bid lower. You always want to make a profit on a contract, even if it's your first contract, for a number of reasons. For one, you may underestimate the amount of administrative work that it takes to manage and perform a contract. This is pretty common when you're starting out. You can also bid low and you're like, all right, I'm okay losing a little bit of money on this first contract because I just want my foot in the door. However, if you want to be a repeat supplier or contractor with this government agency, they may expect that price going forward. In fact, they will. And let me tell you, it's a lot easier to lower your prices later than it is to raise them. Quite often you'll need a pretty good justification why you're raising prices. So you don't want to try to bid low, you might lose money. So just think about financial stability. This is definitely not a gold mine. It can be very lucrative if you play your cards right, but it's not, just going in and they're going to hand you the money up front and make it happen. Past performance, or what we call history of sales. This is very important. We get a lot of clients who are kind of just starting out, and maybe your business is struggling. You don't have many private clients. You don't have many history of performance, and we really want to recommend that you have some success in the private marketplace before you try to get into government contracting. And think about it this way: if you're the government agency, you usually have the ability to be a pretty picky buyer. A lot of local solicitations won't get a lot of responses, but a lot of solicitations with federal, state, and local, you name it, will get a lot of responses from competent businesses. And you are going to be picked because you're paying with the public's tax-funded dollars. So you want to ask yourself, why do I go with this business? What's the lowest risk? Is it somebody who's just starting out, or is it somebody who has a history of performance in the private market and can demonstrate that they've done this sort of thing for years? And so we really do recommend that you have a history of sales before you try to dip into contracting in most cases. Market research. So it's really important to understand the landscape that you're trying to get into. Procurement specialists such as myself can help. So go ahead and reach out to us if you want help with this. Understanding what government agencies are buying what you sell. How much do they buy? When do they buy it? Which time of the year? How, are there indefinite volume contracts that expire every 3 years, every 5 years? Are there blanket purchase agreements? And that's really where you need to be. So kind of just going in and bidding on whatever you see is not going to be a viable strategy. You want to be really conscientious about developing an understanding of how you fit into this picture. So, think about, for instance, let's say you sell PPE, is the market saturated? In the beginning of COVID, it was not. There was a ton of opportunities for PPE, masks and things like that. In fact, there needed to be a lot more. And so we saw a lot of clients come in trying to sell masks, but then the market got saturated pretty quickly. So nowadays, if you're trying to do it, you might not find very much opportunity because there was this big boom. So just kind of understanding the overall flow of the landscape is really important. And then the last point here, you want a good website. In this day and age, there's website platforms you can do yourself or you can have done for pretty cheap. And there's all kinds of AI tools now you can use to have a nice looking website. So it really is important. Contracting officers and program managers in different government agencies, they're people just like us. They want to see a business that has their stuff together, has a professional looking online presence. And we'll talk about how to shape your website for government contracting eyes as well. So we'll go into that. Okay, how to get started. Some meat and potatoes of the presentation here. First of all, we're a little biased, but we are kind of the procurement assistance network program across the whole country. So as Amanda said, we have 96 offices. We used to be called PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Now we're APEX Accelerators. So apply for us. We're free. We can help you out. You can apply and request a meeting with me, for instance, if you're in our service area. And we can kind of break down all of these things, everything they're going through today. So that's the first thing. You don't try to go it alone. It's really helpful to have mentors. So first, you want to identify your target agencies. So you want to narrow it down to maybe 3 to 5 agencies that buy what you sell, and then really do some research. Who are they? How do they buy what I sell? When do they buy it? Those kind of things I'm talking about. Choose your codes. So there's industry codes that describe what it is that you sell, what kind of projects you want to bid on. So for the federal government, there's the NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification System codes, and we can help you pick those out. And then your UNSPSC, that's the United Nations version. Basically, they do the same thing. It's a series of digits that describe what industry you're in. And they can be kind of tricky to pick which ones are right for you. So go ahead also and register and certify on Cal eProcure. That is the state government website. It's your one-stop portal. It's where you get registered. It's where you can certify as a small business. It's where you can find past contract data and open contracts as well. So definitely take a look at that. Similar thing, the federal government, they combined a bunch of websites a number of years ago that were all different procurement portals into one, which is SAM.gov, System for Award Management. And that is where, first and foremost, you want to get registered as a business, as a vendor. So you want to get your UEI number, that's your unique entity ID. That basically says that you are in the system, but the CAGE code, the commercial and governmental entity code, that is what you get when you have a completed SAM registration. So probably a lot of you have heard about SAM registrations. Maybe you need some help with yours. So it's a 2-step process. First, you get your UEI, then you get your CAGE code. They don't use the DUNS number anymore. So if you've been around for some years and you have a DUNS number, that might still find some use in other applications, but not for the federal government. They use an in-house method, which is the UEI number. Once you are registered in SAM.gov, your information will be ported over to a system called the Dynamic Small Business Search, the DSBS. This is managed by the SBA, Small Business Administration, and they will import some of your information, some of the basic information on your business, but you have an opportunity to go in and add more. And this is free marketing for your business. And this is what contracting officers and other potential buyers and stakeholders in the government can use as they're going there to find potential vendors. So you can put in a capability narrative, a few sentences describing what it is you do, some keywords to help search engine optimization, and you can even list past performances and references, special equipment. And I believe now that you can even put a link to upload your capability statement, which is the next topic here. You'll see this is linked to a new web page we created, or updated web page. So if you're curious about capability statements beyond what we're going to talk about today, please go take a look at that. Capability statement is a 1-page resume for your business for the marketplace of government contracting. So it has certain kinds of information. We're going to go over that in a little bit, so I won't talk too much about it. And make sure your your website is government friendly, and we'll talk about what that means as well. So first, this webinar is not about socioeconomic certifications. We have a lot of webinars breaking down all kinds of different ones. So I will move fairly quickly through these. Let me know if you have any questions. But there are 2 main ones that we see on a day-to-day basis, being the California based center. We see state of California certifications, where there's 2. There's a small business, and then there's the disabled veteran business enterprise. And then there's a version of the small business, which is for public works, which basically says you can still be considered a small business, even if you have more employees and a bigger yearly revenue, if you're in the public works field, just because it takes a lot of capacity to perform on public works projects. But we can talk about eligibility requirements in another webinar. But most of you probably qualify for the small business certification with California State, and it's a good idea. There's a lot of set-asides and preferences when competing against large businesses. United States federal. So most of these are managed by the SBA. They've done a lot of work in recent years to combine and simplify these different certifications, make it kind of more of a uniform process. First one is the small business. So they also have an SB certification. It's kind of a self-certification. You just get it when you do your SAM registration. And if you are a disadvantaged business, and that means a minority-owned business, economically disadvantaged as well, you can get your SDB or your small disadvantaged self-certification through the SAM registration as well. And so that's really, it doesn't take much to get that. It's kind of on your way to get your page code. Much more in depth are the following certifications: WOSB, or the economically disadvantaged, woman-owned small business certification. They'll require all kinds of paperwork and a lengthier application, and they can take anywhere from 2 to 5 months. They say 90 days, but it's quite often longer, especially with back and forths. And then they have, so that's for if your business is 51% owned and unconditionally controlled by women, by a woman or multiple women. And then kind of the same idea with the veteran-owned small business program, or the service disabled veteran-owned small business program. This is now under the SVA. So if you had a VA verification or a previous certification, you will need to recertify as a VOSB with the SVA at this point. Same idea, you need to be 51% owned and controlled by veterans. Historically underutilized business zone. This one's a little different because it's not a socioeconomic certification as much as it's a geographic certification. So the idea is that there are historically underutilized zones in the United States, which means that not a lot of federal contracting dollars have gone to certain areas, whether it's a rural area or an inner city area that's been historically impoverished. The Census Bureau designates certain hub zones throughout the country, and if you have a business that's located there, and more than a third of your employees also live in that hub zone, you can be eligible for this certification, which can give you a price preference when bidding on contracts. 8A program is another one. This is a big one. It's a minority business development program. It's kind of in limbo right now as far as the minority status. They're not currently accepting applications, but it's a pretty in-depth 9-year certification program. It's a business development program. So you get assigned a counselor, there's options for teaming agreements and sole sourcing. And it's really only something that you can do after you've had a decent amount of experience in the private sector as well as the market for government contracting. So you have to be at least 2 years in business and be really ready to go and make some sales. Then there's one that's kind of federal and kind of state. It's called the DBE, or the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. And it's mandated by the US Department of Transportation. But each state comes up with their own DBE program. And this is really for businesses that want to do business with projects that have Department of Transportation funding handed down to the state government. So think Caltrans, think BART, and things like that. And just a note on certifications. Certifications are great. We help our clients with them all the time. We recommend that you get whatever certifications are eligible for you. But certifications are not the, I think a lot of folks kind of put them forward in their mind, that if you get your certifications and then you start bidding on projects that you're going to win. But that is not the case, especially if you're bidding on a set aside, the WOSB set aside. The one thing you have in common with all the other applicants that are bidding on this is that they're all WOSBs. So at that point, you may get your foot in the door with the certification, but it is not a distinguishing factor. That's all going to be women-owned small businesses. And just more generally, your certifications are not the value that you provide. Your value is what you sell and what you can do, the problems that you can solve. And so really be thinking, it's really not too different from the private marketplace in that way. You want to sell your value at your company's value, not any sort of box checking. Okay, another thing, folks, a lot of people, like as I mentioned in the beginning, when they think of the government, they think of the federal government or maybe the state government. But there's a lot of money to be made in local contracting. Local governments across the country actually spend more money than the federal government. So, I think I saw a figure in 2021, something like $2 to $3 trillion spent by local governments. So there's actually more money being spent by local governments The problem is, even if there's hundreds of agencies in the federal government, it is still the federal government. There's all kinds of things that each agency does a little bit differently, but it is one government entity, ultimately. It couldn't be farther from the truth for local governments. We're talking about cities. How many cities are there in the United States? How many counties are there? I mean, even in California, there's almost 60. School districts, transportation agencies, we're publicly owned utilities. There are so many, and they each have their own processes. So Sonoma County doesn't have to follow San Francisco City and County's procurement things. So it's really kind of all over the place. So that's kind of the downside. There's a lot of money there. You can do really well just by staying on the local contracting. So it says great way to get your feet wet, but really, I mean, it can be the beginning and end of your contracting career if you'd like it to be, if you play your cards right and you have something that's really needed. But you can also use it as a stepping stone or a way of building performance. So there are local business preferences certifications. For instance, San Francisco has a LBE, local business enterprise certification, but plenty of cities and counties don't, so don't expect that. And it also won't be the end all be all. It'll be just a foot in the door or a little feather in your cap. We have a link here to our local agency procurement sites. We've put together a lot of different websites in our service area, so please take a look at that when you get these slides. And who doesn't love a cute puppy? Capability statements. This is an important part of marketing your business. As I mentioned, it's a resume for your business. I'm going to be presenting a webinar at the end of the month on the 29th at 10 a.m. So you can find it on our website. There will also be a link here when you get the slides. You can click there. Similar to this one, it's going to be an hour and it'll be free for you to join and ask all the questions you want. So capability statement, as I mentioned, it's a one-page resume for your business, essentially. You want to have certain kinds of information on there that's designed and intended for government market. And you want to create different versions. You'll have a master version and then create different versions to target different agencies. So let's say you're doing business, you're trying to get a contract with the state. You'll have a state version, you'll have a federal version, you'll have a local version, different kinds of codes and things like that. We won't get too deep into it, but we do have a new instructional page, how to write a capability statement. And so you want to take a look at that. It goes real into depth. There's also an instruction guide you can download and a template we'll talk about on the next page. So basically, you want to include a brief intro paragraph in your capability statement, core competencies, so it's a bullet pointed list of what you do, differentiators, so what makes you different than your competition. Try to do some market research here to find out about your competition, what makes you special. Some key clients, so just some highlights, and then a more detailed list of past performance, any contracts, even if it's in the private sector, that you can put together. And you can also include, if you have, your company doesn't have a lot of experience, but you have experience with other companies or in your private work, you can include that in like an executive experience section as well. And that still kind of counts as lending credence to your ability to perform on contracts. You'll want to put your codes and certifications. So we talked about NAICS codes, we talked about UNSPSC codes, and of course, contact information, website, things like that, and make it look nice with a photo or two. Like I mentioned, we have a new template here. So go to our website, download the template, download the instruction guide. It'll have some kind of overarching tips on how to write for the government and how to use the template as well. So please take a look at that. Similarly, another kind of marketing resource is going to be your website. As I mentioned before, it's important. So make sure your website looks good, make sure it's updated and it's not from 2012, the old information, that it's relevant for the audience you want to reach. And we think it's a really great idea. I mean, it is a great idea. I won't qualify by saying we just think that, to have a government tab on there. So you could just say government or government contracts. And here's where you're going to put all the basic information that at a glance that would be in your capability statement. So you'll have a link for your capability statement. You'll have maybe list your registrations or certifications, maybe some NAICS codes, UNSPSC codes, any recent projects, past performance, and just make it all nice and easy to navigate. And we won't let you leave you just wondering what it looks like here. This is not an endorsement of these companies, but these are just a couple examples of websites that have government contracts tabs. So they have a company overview, they're basically mentioning what they can do for their government clients. They've mentioned their certifications, current and previous contracts. And if you scroll down, you get to a link to a capability statement. So beautiful, looks nice. If you're a government contracting professional, if you're a contracting officer or program manager, you go on that website, it's very reassuring to say, oh, they're serious about this. Same thing for this company. They've got some logos of the some federal agencies that they've done work with, and that's great. They're a GSA contract holder. We won't get into what that is, but if you are on one, it's nice to advertise it for sure. And they've got their NAICS codes, which may be really helpful if you're a federal buyer. So that's kind of the idea for a government contracting website. It's definitely a professional move and will put you ahead of a lot of your competition, most likely. All right, marketing to the government. As I mentioned, this is incredibly important. You want to develop a marketing plan to target agencies or primes who buy what you sell. So this is going to be a lot of work. It is hard work. It's going to take quite a while, but it will pay off eventually. You want to network, not just with government agencies, of course, and the representatives in those agencies, but also prime contractors. So if you want to work as a subcontractor, which we think is a great idea, find the large primes or even or any size prime contractors who are used to bidding on these type of things, build a relationship with them, say, hey, here's what we do, how can we get involved? And you can also do the similar thing with other small businesses. You can form teaming agreements and go after contracts together. If you feel like it's too much capacity just for one company, get to know your colleagues in the field and work together. Sometimes a rising tide floats all ships. So keep that in mind as well. You're not just networking with government agencies, you're networking with other businesses as well. So establish relationships. I tell this to my clients all the time. It's human beings behind all of these procurement protocols. So definitely keep that in mind. The more you know somebody, the more familiar you can be with somebody, the more likely they are going to think of you when they're writing a solicitation, or they can sometimes issue sole sources, or if it's under the micro purchase threshold, they can just go ahead and buy from you since they know you already. You can attend expos, matchmakers, conferences. Don't overlook these. These are really important in every way. You can find tons of teaming partners. You can find government contracting officers who you really want to get to know all in one day at some of these industry conferences. So please don't overlook that and buy some plane tickets and get going. Participate in training. So you're doing that today, joining trainings. Keep doing this. Learn as much as you can. Always be thinking as a student. So the more you can learn, especially in the beginning, the first couple of years of doing this, the better you're going to be off. Social media, don't overlook social media, especially LinkedIn. Instagram, Facebook, not as helpful, especially not TikTok these days, not in the government marketplace. LinkedIn, I think something like 70% of government contracting officers are now on LinkedIn. And if you have a good LinkedIn, make sure that looks nice, polish it up like you would on your website. And you can reach out to the stakeholders, do your research, and then find who they are, find them on LinkedIn, and you can strike up a conversation. And of course, but actually a lot of people don't know this, there are small business representatives in all kinds of different government agencies who are on payroll in order to be the liaison between you and the government. So they want to find small businesses that can get involved. There's also the dynamic small business search, which I also mentioned, is basically free marketing for your business. Anybody can look you up, and it's a great idea to fill that in. All right, where to find bid opportunities. And I want to note here, a lot of folks, when they get their registrations and certifications, then they're like, okay, I'm going to go on SAM.gov and I'm going to find a bid and I'm going to bid on it. 90% of the time, that's not how it works. That's not how you're most likely to get a contract. Most of it really comes from networking and understanding, doing a lot of research on a specific government agency, anticipating an opportunity, building that relationship, and doing that kind of work to get ahead of it. But you can find opportunities that you can bid on. People also have success that way. We have a list of local agency websites, as I mentioned previously in the presentation, prime contractor websites. So do some market research, find who's in your field. Cal eProcure, they're in addition to being a place where you can get registered and certified, you can also find open contracts and also past ones. SAM.gov, same deal. For the federal government, acquisition.gov has procurement forecasts. And this is for the federal government. And so you can see what all kinds of federal agencies think they're going to spend in a given fiscal year. And you can find opportunities posted to things like Builders Exchange, especially for subcontracting opportunities. And we can also set you up with a bid matching service that Amanda mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Okay, I know we moved through a lot very quickly. I want to leave some time for the questions here. But in summary, here are your 10 steps for success. So number one, determine if you're ready for government contracting. It's not for everybody. Your profit margins will be maybe lower than you expect in government contracting. And so maybe you should be focusing on the private market, or maybe this is your goal and you've done your research and you're ready to go. So first, ask yourself that question, go through our readiness checklist, apply for our services. We can help you at no cost. Complete the getting started checklist, like I mentioned. Get certified for anything that's applicable for you, probably at least the small business certifications, if not some socioeconomic certifications as well. Create your capability statement. That's your marketing, your main kind of tool in your arsenal for marketing. Update your website, as I mentioned, make that look nice and slick for the government audience. Network, build relationships, and market your business. This is the most important. This is how you're going to be spending most of your time. About 80% of your time, once you're past the initial steps, is going to be about networking and marketing. And so it's really important not to overlook that step. Locate bid opportunities and then bid on them, fail, mess up, and try again and keep going until you start winning contracts. So that's our recipe for success. We really do want to see you succeed. This is a little snap of our team here. There's 8 of us on the team, and we absolutely love working with clients and helping them out. So we really get a lot out of seeing you succeed. So we hope that someone in the audience here today is going to be a future success story for us. And I'll hand it back over to Amanda for a very brief little description of upcoming events. And then we're going to have a Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much, James. That was a lot of information to cover, and you cover it very thoroughly, very well for understanding. So fantastic presentation. And before we do go into our questions, and we do have quite a few really good questions, I do want to make you aware that we have a ton of events coming up, including some that I would like to kind of pick out for you. We have a very similar introductory webinar, but for the federal government coming up next Thursday. That's how to do business with the federal government, and that'll be a webinar as well. And then, as James mentioned in the presentation, we are also putting on a Secrets to an Effective Capabilities Statement webinar at the end of this month. And while we don't have a ton of time to go into the other fantastic events that we are partnering on, I will drop a link in chat to our event calendar so you can check out those events and even more on our website right after this. So with that, we'll go into our Q&A section. And I actually do have a couple of questions that I'd like to answer with Darlene first about offices and in-person meetings.
Yes.
So one of our attendees asked if there are local offices in the San Francisco Bay Area and if there are open office hours.
Yes, so the way that it works is you can contact our local offices for women business centers. A New America is one of the centers, and we can assist you based on your needs. We make appointments based on your schedules. We're open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Our services are done remotely or in person by appointment.
Fantastic. And that actually answers one of our other attendees, Anna's question. She was wondering if she could visit face-to-face counseling for WBC in San Joaquin County, but it sounds like you do virtual as well.
Yes, but we can also, if you want to work with a local representative, feel free to email me and I can direct you to local centers that are in your marketplace.
Perfect. And I do want to clarify for everybody, currently Norcal APEX Accelerator only has in-person office visits available in Humboldt County at our headquarters, but we have been asked about getting some open office hours into the Bay Area, and we are actually currently looking into that. We don't have a timeline or a date for that, but it is something we are aware that you guys want. You want to meet with us in the Bay Area, and we're definitely working towards that.
We used to have some, and then this little thing called the coronavirus knocked that out. So, but we do a lot of virtual opportunities, virtual meetings as well. So you get on Zoom, and it's actually pretty helpful sharing screens and moving through.
Absolutely, especially with all of the computer work that contracting really requires. And
Okay.
with that,
You should I can go ahead and just kind of answer some of these questions. So BJ is asking, can a small business be a prime for small contracts? Absolutely, yes. So if it's a small contract, you can absolutely be a prime contractor on it. The kind of intro slide I mentioned there with the typical structure for a large project, that's just, you know, if there's millions of dollars involved or capacity that small businesses are generally not able to perform, then the small businesses usually come in on the scale of the subcontractor, but definitely plenty of opportunities, even set aside opportunities that are explicitly for small businesses. So that's good to keep in mind. Do you need to register on sam.gov if you are just targeting local and state contracts to begin with? We recommend getting registered in sam.gov for a number of reasons, more or less regardless. First off, you can, there's something called this micro purchase threshold. Anything under $10,000, the federal government, especially if you have something like supplies, they can go ahead and just order. Let's say they're ordering books or paper from you. They can just go ahead and put in an order after doing a little market research. And so you're well positioned in sam.gov to pick up some of those small purchases. You know, and the $10,000 may be significant for your business. So that's a good idea, but and then sometimes there's federal dollars involved with a state or local project, and they will actually ask you to be registered in sam.gov because you're technically a recipient of federal contracting dollars, therefore you need a caged goat. So it's better to be to get the SAM registration, be proactive about it, than find out halfway through that you actually need to be registered in SAM in order to bid on a project, and sometimes it can take a month or two. So definitely a good idea to go ahead and get SAM registration right in the beginning, unless you're just definitely sure the federal government's not going to be involved. Okay. Brian Hudson's asking, we manufacture and sell our own line of toothbrushes and oral care supplies. NAICS codes for toothbrushes are lumped in with hairbrushes, toilet brushes, etc. This makes it difficult to be discovered. So a way to have a code that drills down better than what we actually sell. This is a great question, and this is the kind of question that I get from clients a lot. Your NAICS code is going to be, in most cases, the closest approximation of what you do. It's not the end all be all. A lot of work done in the federal marketplace is done using keywords and descriptions, and the NAICS code is kind of a helpful overall orientation. But if there's, you know, if you've gone to the census website, which is where the NAICS codes are listed, and you don't find anything more specific based on keyword searches, then there probably is nothing more specific there. So it's just a matter of using keywords and descriptions and marketing yourselves. So don't wait for them to come and discover you. You know, you want to make sure and go out and make the introductions, make sure you have a website, capability statement, things like that. All right. Where do you find info regarding local expos, matchmakers, and conferences for government contracting? We always do our best to keep our website updated with information like that. Any of our partners or, you know, affiliates, or even just kind of large primes, industry conferences, government agencies that are putting on events, we'll do our best to put there. But, you know, just just go on Google and use your search engine to find whatever kind of opportunities for networking are available out there. Look for event calendars and things like that. There's some big ones. There's, you know, for instance, Navy Gold Coast in San Diego every summer. That's definitely a good one to go to. It just passed a couple weeks ago. If you want to do business with the Navy, the DoD. So just kind of getting to know your landscape and doing some online research. That's going to be honestly a lot of what you're doing in the government marketplace. Still Googling around or binging around or whatever you do. We are 2 minutes past 11 right now, so if you do have to take off, that's totally fine. I want to answer a couple more questions. But if you want to leave, just there's an exit survey that we would love for you to fill out. We'll also email it to you later. Okay, Robin is asking, I've applied for our LBE, and it's a very slow process. Any ideas on expediting? I do not know. I don't think there's a way to expedite the LBE. I'm not sure if you're talking about for San Francisco or where you're, or Alameda or what. But that would be something to ask your procurement specialist to look into. Typically, there's no way to expedite something, especially if you've already submitted an application. Although you can sometimes reach out to folks, different certifications, if you have a pending contract that requires it. But I'm not sure that would be applicable in your case. All right. For professional services, is there any minimum of years in practice? Gabby Gonzalez is asking. Great question. Minimums are, it'll depend on the contract. Sometimes the contract will say, more or less either explicitly or implicitly that you need to have certain qualifications, and as long as you meet those, what it says in the contract, then you're fine with bidding on it. So there's no, especially with all the different kind of government agencies, there's nothing across the board that we can just say, for all professional services, you need 2 years. But we do recommend that you be, at least have at least a quarter of sales and business experience. And honestly, a quarter is low. I would suggest getting work for at least a year or two before trying to break into the government market, because we don't want you to spin your wheels. But the contract itself will be the final authority on if there's any minimum kind of requirements for that. And every contract's a little bit different, even within the federal government. Okay, so Vijay is asking a follow-up question. What does it mean to have an e-commerce enabled website? Does it mean payment capable? That is what we mean by e-commerce. So we mean that if applicable, that they can not necessarily just, buy purchase things, but, even just something that says, book a quote or set up a meeting or something like that. Ideally, if you're selling supplies or something like that, you would have a kind of a shopping portal where they can go in and just make that purchase really simply. They can totally do that, especially if it's in the under the micro purchase threshold for the federal government. They can order supplies fairly easily. But just generally have a website that invites ease of use for them to get involved. All right, I think that's all the questions that I see here. Do we have any other ones, Amanda? All right, well, I think that should just about do it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today.
And thank you, Darlene, for joining us as well. It's always a pleasure having our other resource partners with us on these events.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it and enjoyed the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Darlene. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you at the next one.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye.